Hello, everybody. Welcome to this week's edition of UGASports Live. My name is Radi Nabulsi. I'm joined by Dayne Young and former Georgia Bulldogs head coach Jim Donnan, the man you were all here to see to get his take on the NFL Combine, the guy who was watching it with those Eagles eyes of his. So I can tell Coach will have some great insights into the NFL Combine. And we have next week, we got spring practice starting. And on the 14th will be the first day of spring practice. And then the 15th is pro day. So the guys that impressed in Indianapolis will get a chance to impress again in Athens. And some guys who didn't get to go to Indianapolis will get to make their case to be drafted by the NFL coaches and GMs and scouts who will be descending upon the Classic City next Wednesday. Coach, I'm going to go straight to you. I know you watched hours and hours and hours of the drills and the testing and stuff like that. I thought some guys had standout performances. It felt like another infomercial for the University of Georgia. At the same time, some guys maybe didn't test as high as we thought they would. So let me get your overall impressions, and then we'll hit some of these guys individually.
Yeah, just from a complete impression, it was just astounding the way these guys performed under pressure. I mean, everybody in the football world's looking at you, and you got to deliver. And some of them just out of sight. Others, maybe pressed a little. But that's why you have the tape, and that's why you have the, the pro day coming up here on next Wednesday to maybe make up for something that you had a deficiency in. But I would just say, listening to all the different experts up there, they were all wowed by Georgia, and certainly, we got enough about Anthony Richardson for sure. He certainly took the bull by the horns. And, the one thing that I hear about Anthony that I don't think a lot of our fans, it's a typical Georgia, Florida thing. But from what I understand, he comes from a single mom, and he's a really good kid too, and really smart. So hopefully that'll help him along with all his physical tools. Certainly he didn't have a good supporting cast last year, and there's all the reasons to think that he won't make it, but there's all the reasons to make you think he will, particularly with the NFL like it is now with all the RPOs, and you seeing Hurts and Mahomes and these guys that are so athletic doing extremely well. But started off right off the bat with Nolan Smith just knocking everybody to his knees and to their knees, and then just continued. Of course, I thought Darnell did everything humanly possible to show why he really has so much going for him. And people don't realize that his best trait is a blocker right now will even help him even more. Stetson, I thought, really performed well. I mean, he's going up there right after, throwing at the same time with Stroud and Levi's and hanging right with them, particularly on the deep balls. I think from talking to a couple NFL guys and to a couple head coaches, he really did extremely well on the interviews, particularly on the football acumen, which I knew he would because, he's like a coach on the field. So it's just a real testimony to Kirby, the way he prepares these guys, to Scott Sinclair, the way he puts them through all these drills, and to all our coaches and everybody involved here to have that many guys go from Isaiah McKenzie, 2016, one guy drafted in the third or fourth round to all these guys. And it's going to continue. Like I said last week, this freshman class we got stacked up. So just keep it on trucking.
A couple NFL just dates of note and things happening in their roster management. These quarterbacks you're talking about, Coach, they're heavily affected by what's happening with Derek Carr now signing with the Saints. And then the franchise tag deadline is today. And so if Lamar Jackson gets the franchise tag, it looks like he'll be with Todd Monken for a year. And that doesn't mean that they can't draft people later on to be backups for them. But for these kind of first-round guys, those first four, it could impact decisions from those teams.
Yeah, you make a good point. I've kept up with the NFL this morning here because of Lamar, and supposedly he's put out that he wants to be traded. So if he does, then they're going to get a pretty good deal there. I mean, they're going to get, if they put the non-exclusive franchise tag on them, they'd get 2 first-round draft choices. If they put the exclusive, then they'll just have to trade and get somebody. But or they could just trade him without even franchising him. But the team that's waiting for everybody, the Jets, see what they think will happen with Aaron Rodgers, and certainly I think Carr going to, with all of our favorite people around here about the Falcons, that certainly enhances the Saints. But Carr never has even won a playoff game, but in 8 years. But he has played with some really bad defenses and a lot of different head coaches. So I think he's definitely a really good player. But $150 million, I mean, that's a lot of money for a guy that's never won a playoff game.
That is. I was looking at some of the Georgia guys. I know I'll get Dayne's thoughts here in a minute because he and Brent broke down some of the combine performances. I thought Stetson Bennett, when we were watching the deep throws, that's always been a thing. He can't throw deep. He can throw those short out routes. He can throw some of his screens were worse than his deep balls in his career. But I loved I thought of all the deep balls, he had the best ones. Anthony Richardson threw well. I left the thing thinking Anthony Richardson's a good kid. I enjoyed talking to him. But I thought Stetson silenced a lot of doubters, especially with the velocity on his balls. Then Broderick Jones goes out there and runs the fastest time of any lineman. And Nolan Smith's his 40 time was faster than all but 6 wide receivers. It's just some of those the impressions these guys left was huge. And then, of course, Darnell Washington, he looked like a man among boys. And these are guys that are supposed to be drafted, Coach. You're out there with the best of the best tight ends. And he really looked like an all-pro compared to some of those guys. And I thought Kuntz was great. Mayer of Notre Dame looks really good. There are some great tight ends out there, but he just –
Yeah, and that Kincaid kid from Utah.
Kuntz, yeah, Kent, I can't –
he wasn't even there. So, just to thank – Darnell there with Gilbert and Bowers. I mean, Gilbert goes out there next year, he'll test out very similar. But a real tribute to Todd Hartley and the fact that kid from Miami looked good too. That Mallory kid, he recruited him.
Oh yeah,
and he continues to just get good players in there. We got Sperling and Lawson Lucky and. We're just continue to, and what happens is you see these guys doing that well on the field and coming up to the combine. That just enhances your tight end recruiting the more you see these guys out in public like that.
Roddy, I know you got to do a lot of networking up at the combine with different people. I'm sure the reputation of Georgia players is something you get asked about a lot from these NFL folks. Did you get a lot of that last week?
They did actually. A lot of guys, and it started out in years past going up there. They're like, so tell me about this kid. I don't know him. The kid from Georgia, and they didn't know what Georgia players brought to it. As Coach points out, when you only have one guy going, years ago, and then maybe 3, then maybe 2, then 5, something like that. But when you have 15 and they all get to the NFL and are successful, you see how they did. The questions are no longer about what's the atmosphere like at Georgia, how do they play. It becomes real specific. So I had a head coach turn to me at one point and he says, that quarterback at Georgia, he's just a winner, right? I'm like, yeah, he is just a winner. It's and so he wanted to know more about Stetson, and he said he's a bit small. And I said, well, he is. He says it's hard to win in the NFL if you're small. I said, yeah, but he just gets it done. And I thought, man, that was the perfect summation of Stetson Bennett. He's a bit smaller, but he gets it done. And that's an NFL head coach who's been focused all on the NFL and is just now turning his attention to the players out there.
Right. That's a really good point because so many people just get what they get in the press. And
yeah,
I thought it was really smart by Bryce Young and his agent or whoever's talking to him not to throw with those other guys and be compared to because he's just a different type passer than he's not an overwhelming arm strength guy like like you see with some of these guys, and he has some limits with his size. So just going out there and looking at him compared to Stroud and Richardson and Levis would make people think, well, hey, look, this guy, as compared to when he goes to his own pro day and you see him throw and you look at all the things that he does. And what we're going to see here, without me being the general manager like our own Dayne Young here, is I just think we're going to see a lot of trading in the first round. If I'm the Bears, I might trade twice in the first round just to get what I want as far as future draft picks, because there's so many teams that need quarterbacks. They've got 3 teams there, that just really, you got situation there with the Colts and the Panthers, and also just other teams. I mean, they're saying that maybe that the Lions might take one because Goff has such a big contract, and that all runs into the deal. And then all of a sudden, if Lamar Jackson leaves Baltimore, what are they going to do? I mean, Jimmy Garoppolo right now, to me, is going to every Italian restaurant in San Francisco thinking, man, I can't wait till this all happens, because he's a winner and he's shown so much, and somebody's going to pay him some big money here in the next few weeks. I think Jimmy Garoppolo is the big name in free agency as far as I'm concerned.
I do want to mention a couple of former Dogs at the Combine, though, because this is going to happen more and more as players transfer in and out. But Tyreek Stevenson is going to get drafted pretty high in this NFL draft, probably 2nd, 3rd round. And then, Coach, what Matt Landers did at that Combine was pretty crazy. Like, I knew he was fast. I didn't know he was that fast.
Well, I didn't show him catching any balls, though. I mean,
Coach, come on.
I like Matt, but
that's rude.
I wouldn't want him to carry something down the steps for me and count on him not dropping it. I mean, and that's about as much as I'm gonna bust him.
I know you're busting.
He let us down, and I tell you, our coaching let us down at the end of that one Florida game when we threw the ball to him like 5 or 6 straight times when we had a chance to maybe come back the first year that Stetson got hurt. But Matt, more power to him. He made as much out of his career as he could. He went over to Toledo and did okay, and he did some good things for Arkansas. But good speed, there's no question about it. And I thought
unlike Brenton
Cox looked like he had a piano on his back running compared to Nolan. They showed a deal about Nolan, or somebody made it, Cox, the difference between those two. But, can you just think about that one room we had with, all those guys there 4 years ago with Lanning? I mean, just unbelievable group of guys. And same thing Daniel Jeremiah pointed out to me. I talked to him several times during the draft. Name drop here, but I did talk to him, and he said 4 years now, for the last 4 or 5 years, Georgia's had a left tackle go. Isaiah Wynn, and then and Thomas, and then last year Salyer, and now Broderick Jones. I mean, that's a real testimony to offensive line with 3 different offensive line coaches. So pretty impressive there.
Yeah, the coach I was talking to, he said he was just now getting around to knowing who some of these guys were, and he actually asked me, I rank them. Who's the first guy you would take off that team? I said, well, Jalen Carter. No question in my mind. He's like, who's the second guy? I'm like, Darnell Washington. I know there's some good guys out there, but Darnell would be my guy, And this was before Darnell went out and had that crazy day. Like an hour later, we were watching him do all the crazy jumps and stuff, catches and all that stuff. But then it got a little harder. We said, all right, who's the third guy? And I'll stop asking him. I'm like, no, you can ask me all you want because I'm talking to a head coach. We can talk all night. But I said, oh, if you need a cornerback, there's Keeley, but Nolan Smith. I'll take Nolan if you've got the right defensive coordinator. Or, Stetson Bennett. I'm like you took his own words and put them back to him. I said, you want a guy who's just going to win. Stetson will win games. And this was before, I think Stetson could do it. I didn't realize he was going to throw that well. I hadn't seen that part of it. But I thought the interesting thing was, he's asking, he's hit me up for all this kind of insider information about the Dogs because we cover them. But I said, Coach, the guy you need to watch next year is Brock Bowers. He goes, oh, I already know all about Brock. I checked to see if he could come out this year. I was like, oh. So you're not that familiar with Stetson or Keely Ringo or Broderick Jones, the left tackle that's going to go in the first 20 picks. But by God, you know Brock Bowers. I was like,
yeah, I mean, that's good. And I think, the thing about the draft that I've always learned for a long time is it's kind of like going to the grocery store. You go in there for specific needs. Your team has specific needs based on what you have coming back and what you're going to lose in free agency. And, that's what one thing they've done with the salary cap here is they've made it easier for a team to all of a sudden be competitive as compared to just counting on the draft, like in the old days so it's a real kind of like college football with the portal and all the things that we're involved with. The same thing's true with the pro team and the roster management and the cap, the way they take this money. And, I thought it was interesting this morning. This guy was making this comparison that guy that's the kind of jack of all trades for the Saints, the one that played at
Taysom Hill.
Yeah, Taysom. He and Lamar Jackson have made it almost within $100,000, have been in the league, and they've made the same amount of money. Lamar Jackson's only lost 16 games as a quarterback, and it's just you just don't know what the deal's going to be. But they're going to be driving the Brinks truck up to him if all of a sudden he's a unrestricted free agent, or if they put him as a unrestricted franchise type deal. But we're here to talk about Georgia, guys, and answer some questions. But I know Roddy wants to talk about a couple of our sponsors here before we get going here.
I do. Before I don't lose my thought about what Dayne brought up about two former players. I thought it was very interesting that Tyreek Stevenson said that he's still in a group text with all the Georgia players. And when they won the title, he was crying for him. He was so happy for him. And he reached out to him, and he really pulled for him.
He's probably crying because he's in Miami.
I didn't want to say that part of it, but yeah. But it was neat that
they lost to
Middle Tennessee
State last year.
Yeah. So that was interesting. And Matt Landers, we kind of joke, teasing him. Matt's a good guy. He said he was also happy for Georgia as well. But I thought it was interesting that when we asked some of the Georgia players, when did you know when you got to Georgia that it was different? And it was Chris Smith who said that, oh man, Matt Landers killed me. He ran by me. I could start out as a cornerback. So he just burned me over and over and over again. He said, I couldn't keep up with him. So I thought that was a nice moment from Chris Smith to honor another former player who's actually at the NFL Combine, to give him some props. So that was kind of nice. But if you want to do something proper and you want to give someone in your family a nice time or a good recommendation, tell them about Your Pie. Tell them about Pie Day. It's coming up 1 week, 3/14. It's the 14th, 15th, and 16th. You get $3.14, i.e. pie, 3.14 off of any pizza at any of their locations. It's a huge deal. The pizzas aren't that expensive, so this is a fantastic deal. And you can have it made any way you like. So you go to the Your Pie locations. You can also order it on the app. I recommend ordering it on the app and then going and picking it up or walking in and saying, yeah, you can eat it there. You can have it delivered, takeout. Because if you do it on the app, you get points, and the points turn into free pizzas, free breadsticks, free gelato, free drinks. If you do it on a Tuesday, and you don't have to eat it today, you can order it on Tuesday to be picked up some other time. You get double points. So don't forget, next week when Pie Day rolls around, order on the app. You can pick it up some other time, and it'll be set for you. All right. Also, mention our friends at Dead Soxy. Dead Soxy, this is a company that is so well loved by our readers at UGASports.com and the readers on the Ole Miss message board and the readers of the Tennessee board and the readers at the South Carolina board. They I've seen multiple people on multiple sites say, I will not buy any other socks than what I can get from Dead Socks. And the reason being, they're incredibly comfortable. They have the True Stay technology. They don't slide down. If you have big fat calves like I do, you put on socks and they're cutting off the circulation, or they slide down and you're constantly dealing with them. Get Dead Socks. They're comfortable. They're incredibly soft, and you won't have to keep constantly bending over to pull your damn socks up. So hit up our friends at Dead Socks when you get a chance. Use promo code UGASports to get a 20% discount.
We have a few questions in our YouTube chat about players at the combine. So I want to throw these at you real fast, Coach Donnan, to make sure that these folks that watch us every week feel included. This is from Jason Kennebrew. Do you think that Jackson gets drafted? I think he deserves a shot. He has a valuable skill set as a slot guy, but then also as a special teams player.
Yeah, I think he'll be a late draft. I didn't see him do any of the drills. The only thing I saw him do was just run. But did he not do the catching drills, Roddy?
I didn't see him. I thought he did like the broad jump, but not the vertical. It was odd.
He might have had some kind of a leg injury. But the thing that he brings to that so many of these skilled people do, if we go back to many of our shows early on, Kirby likes to get the freshmen involved with the special team so they can get some game action and then keep their whistles wet a little bit as far as morale, and then all of a sudden maybe bring them in late in some of the games in position. And the thing about Carr is he can return punts, kickoffs, cover punts, cover kickoffs. Is a good possession type receiver, and you see around the league the slot guy is really paramount because everybody got their best corners on the outside guys, and you can work on these stars or nickel guys. And he's a good route runner. He understands passing concepts, and he's very physically tough. And he's very much to give you a little bit about his personal characteristic. He was the guy chosen by out of everybody in the athletic association as the athlete that represented the other athletes on the athletic board. So he's got good people skills. He can articulate, and he'd be a good team member. I think he'll get drafted maybe late round.
I'm pretty sure I talked to the Giants guy about him, one of the scouts, and they asked something about him, and I said, look, that kid is pound for pound one of the toughest I've ever covered. So if you're looking at 5'10", 5'11", you're worried about that guy and the smaller guys getting hurt in the NFL. Like, take years. You'll be fine.
Phil Rogers on Facebook asked, do y'all think that Stetson Bennett could end up with Coach Monken and the Ravens?
Well, certainly if he gets down to a later round pick, I think Monken would love to have him because he knows his system and he could help the other quarterbacks as far as developing good knowledge of it. But at the same time, they're going to go with what their needs are and who they want. And but I'm sure Todd will be invaluable talking to all the scouting people there, Eric DaCosta, the general manager, and Ozzie Newsom, the vice president of personnel, who used to be the general manager, about the players in particular, not only at Georgia, but the ones in the league, the SEC, the way they can I know when I talked to Doug Marrone last year when he went back to coach with the with the Saints. No, that after coaching a year at Alabama, he had a lot more knowledge of what the SEC players could do and help them with the draft. But the team didn't play that great. But it does help you to know there's nothing like playing against these guys and watching the tape on them as compared to, all of a sudden here between February and April, all of a sudden trying to just learn everything you can about these guys. The one thing I like about the pros that they've started doing is particularly for the higher draft choices. You've got the position, the scouts that have the area, and then you have the head scout, and they look at the guys. But if a guy is going to be a first rounder, then they'll send the position coach to each guy's either to their pro day or just to meet with them to see how they feel like they'll fit in, because it is a big deal. I mean, these getting drafted in the first, second round is huge.
Yeah. Coach, will the other teams still reach out to Todd Monken and say, hey, can you tell me about Broderick Jones? Can you tell me about Kyrus Jackson? Can you tell me about these players?
You're talking about the other teams like the Colts?
Yeah, the other NFL teams reach out to him because he was the offensive coordinator. He was at Georgia.
I mean, there could be some of that. I mean, you see some of that in college when you play a team and another team calls you and asks you about them. It just depends on whether you really know the guy or not. I mean, if the guy's calling you on your cell phone, you probably know him. If the guy's calling you at the office, you probably don't.
I'm out. I'm not here.
Question from Antoine Sampson, watching us down in Columbus. He's watching on YouTube. He asked a few. I'm going to go with the last one that he asked. Do you think Darnell Washington is a first-round pick? And it sounds like Antoine would even be happy if the Falcons put Darnell with Kyle Pitts and Drake London to have some firepower. I think that's probably a little early for Darnell for the Falcons pick, but I see why that's enticing.
I think the thing that hurts Darnell, he's definitely first round pick, but there's other tight ends involved. And just, is he going to be the first tight end taken? Because, we've got Kincaid, who's really got humongous stats from out there in Utah. And then you also got Mayer, who really did a great job at Notre Dame. So they just have, being the focal point, they just have so many, like Kincaid caught 16 passes in one game last year. So, but Darnell, if they look at the total deal of the blocking and the catch radius and the agility, the one thing that was overwhelming for him was the cone drill where he ran the fastest time. And for a guy to be that tall and that angular and to start and stop that quickly in such a small space is just spectacular. And it shows you the kind of skill that he has. And the way he's learned to handle his frame. One of the hardest things about teaching a long guy is how to bend. A lot of times you'll catch a pass and instead of bending from the waist down, you'll just stick your arms down. You got to be like a shortstop. You got to bend from the waist down and get down with it. And then Hartley did a good job with a lot of drills with him. So I would say unequivocally I would take him before anybody else. But he's got some – he probably has as many good players at his position as Ringo does at corner. I mean, when you look at that Gonzalez guy who's from Oregon, and then you got the Youngblood or whatever his name was from that was not full speed there, but from Illinois. Illinois got two DBs, but Ringo did well with his running. I didn't think he jumped quite as high as I thought he would, but Ringo gets with the right team. I mean, he's a bigger guy, and it's just amazing how you hear about the background of these. This Gonzalez guy was recruited by Tyson Summers, a guy that used to work here, was the head coach at Georgia Southern. He was recruited to Colorado by him, and then their secondary coach went from Colorado to Oregon with Dan Lanning, and he got this kid to come with him, and now he's a first-round draft choice. I mean, you look at all the draft choices that Oregon has. You mean they're that O-lineman that they got a good back. They got a lot of good players. It's easy to see why they've been winning. That's for sure.
It's funny. We asked a lot of the players, what was your best game? What game would you show NFL scouts? Chris Smith, Darnell Washington, and Broderick Jones all said the Oregon game. So I'm like, yeah, you kicked the butts of a lot of top players. So
Stetson should too. Let me just remember one thing that I never will forget. The week before the Oregon game, I just happened to be over there getting some treatment, and I saw Todd Monken in the hallway walking. I said, "What do you think about this game?" He said, "Hey, Coach, it's just like going to a Saturday scrimmage." He said, "We know everything they're going to do. Of course, they know what we're going to do, but our kids are most prepared of any team I've ever had because we're going against the same defense they see every day in practice." I mean, what was it, like 7 for 7 or something? But that was a pretty good answer he had.
It's the Oracle at Delphi right there. He knew what was coming.
I have some good news as a producer. It is time for the return of the game show that is sweeping the state of Georgia.
I think my Wi-Fi is going out. I'm pretty
No, your.
Don't make it too hard for me.
3 questions each. To see who knows more about the Georgia Bulldogs, Jim Donnan or Radi Nabulsi. We start as always with Coach Donnan. Coach, did you know that Kirby Smart was a really good football player in college? Where did he play college football?
He played at Georgia, and I knew he was really good because I coached him.
All right. 1 for 1.
Rigged.
Off to Roddy now. You can still look. This is an early lead for Coach. You have plenty of time to catch up.
I'm coming.
Roddy, which team did Georgia lose 6-0 to open up the 1905 football season?
Son of a bitch. Stanford.
It's a tough break here. Cumberland beat Georgia 6-0. Georgia went 1-5 that season.
Cumberland.
All right, Coach, leading 1-0.
Dave would have got that.
Patrick probably would have too.
Patrick would have too.
Yeah, Patrick would dominate this game. Maybe we can bring him on to be your teammate in a future iteration.
Yes.
All right, Coach Donnan's up 1-0. Second question, Coach. The University of Georgia is located in Athens, Georgia, but did you know that it was named after a European city? Which European city is Athens named for?
Athens, Greece.
All right, 2 for 2 for Jim Donnan. Crazy. I don't think you've missed one on this game before. I'm just looking at Roddy's face. All right, Roddy, your second question. Before current athletics director Josh Brooks was Georgia's director of football operations, he was the director of football operations for Louisiana Monroe. Who was the head coach at Louisiana Monroe when Josh Brooks was the director of football operations?
I do not know who the head coach was there.
Charlie Weatherby.
Oh yeah, that was on the tip of my tongue the whole time.
Sure.
Charlie Weatherby used to be offensive coordinator for Air Force Academy.
I mean, see, Coach was ready to go.
Played quarterback at Oklahoma State.
So you don't like him then?
I like him then. I like him. All right.
Oh, you don't like Oklahoma State, so I just assumed by association. All right, final question. Roddy's 0 for 2. Coach is 2 for 2. Final question. Which Georgia head coach signed the defensive line class that included Richard Seymour, Josh Millard, and Demetric Evans?
Me.
Jim Donnan. That is correct. This is last time the final question for him, the answer was Jim Donnan.
This is some SEC refs bullshit. I'm telling you.
I'm going to bring this home for you, Roddy, and talk about this question is about Georgia's best player for this upcoming season, Brock Bowers. Your question, Brock Bowers, what's his middle name?
Superman?
Touchdown.
The NFL coach probably knew, but you did not. His last name, or his middle name, Allen. Brock Allen Bowers. So once again, that is a 3-0 victory for Coach Donnan. Yeah.
That's good.
All right. I'm going to switch gears here and talk about our friends at Athens Ford. Because, I'm not a winner of this game, but these guys are winners. And they will make you a winner if you decide to go out to Athens Ford and to purchase a vehicle from them, because you will get a lifetime powertrain warranty on any new vehicle. You can't get that anywhere else. It's not every a situation where every Ford dealership offers that. You're like, I'm here in South Georgia, or I'm here in North Carolina, or I'm in South Carolina. I'm just going to go to my local Ford dealer and get the same thing that Roddy's talked about on the show. No, you have to come to Athens and go to Athens Ford to get the lifetime powertrain warranty. It's very important. There are other Ford dealerships out there. I'm sure they're all very nice, but they don't offer this. This is a distinct thing that you can get from Athens Ford. You can also get it on a lot of their pre-owned vehicles. So if you're buying a certified pre-owned, it'll be there. If you're buying any of the American cars, anything non-European pretty much, Japanese, stuff like that, you can get the lifetime powertrain warranty on a vehicle under 80,000 miles, even if someone else has owned it previously. So hit up our friends at Athens Ford. They will take great care of you. Now, speaking of someone else who will take good care of you, I want to talk about our friend Andy Ludecki at myperfectfranchise.net. So let's say you want to be the boss. You want to open up a Ford dealership type thing. You want to open up a franchise. You want to open your own business. you don't know how to get started. You can go online, Google franchise, Google get started. And there'll be a ton of people out there who will charge you a lot of money to try to help you get started in the franchise business. Andy doesn't charge you anything. You can text him, you can call him, you can email him. He will walk you through it. It won't cost you a dime, and he will help you navigate the, I don't want to call them choppy waters, but the confusing rigmarole that comes with owning a franchise. And if you go to his website, you can learn a lot about how to, the different categories. Like, are you an owner operator? Are you a regional developer? You're a master franchisee? Are you a semi-absent franchisee? So there's 3,000 different franchises out there. Andy will help you pick out the right one. So go to myperfectfranchise.net, call Andy Ludecky. He will take care of you.
Coach, on campus, it's spring break. Spring football starts next week. Does the spring break before spring football make you nervous? Just because players scatter and you don't know what they're doing.
It's always a little give and take. I mean, you hope that the kids will do a little working out, but at the same time, it's good for them to, kind of kick back and just hopefully don't get any kind of trouble, but just enjoy being out with their buddies. And, it's just goes with being in college. I mean, spring break, something everybody looks forward to. And then certainly the coaches, too, get a little chance to kick back a little bit as well. So I think it's definitely a plus. I'm not one that likes to have practice and then take a spring break and then come back. I think the way Kirby does it's the way to do it. Start back. They'll come back, have a meeting Sunday night, run some, and get ready to go, and then start on Tuesday. The good part about it is they can't wear pads for a couple of days. And so they go every Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday for like 5 weeks. And the way the rules are now, you can't have but so many contact practices, which I think are good because there's been so many studies made that because spring coaches weren't worried about injuries, there was a lot more contact and you had more concussions in the spring. And so the trainers and coaches got together and made the schedule where you could have, I think, 3 scrimmages and like 4 contact practices. And, it's really just a good way they're doing it now. I think it's awesome. And I think the other thing that's good is you have a coaches clinic where you bring the high school coaches in and any junior college guys, and they come in and meet with the coaches and watch practice and do a lot of things. I remember last year, the real buzz around the practice was why isn't Stetson Bennett running with the ones? Why is what's going on? And I'm telling you, Kirby's sending him a message. He wasn't doing everything he needed to off the field as far as classwork and all that. And so kind of embarrassing for Stetson to be out there and be running with the twos. But he sent him a good message. And all the coaches saw that Kirby's a real disciplinarian. I thought it was a real good move.
Other than keeping Brock Bowers in bubble wrap, I mean, is there anything that you would do this spring out of the ordinary? Because I know you've said that keeping him away from the football field may be the best thing.
Yeah, there's a real fine line there. I mean, your best players, keeping them developing and all. But, the kid goes, he's a young man. He goes 100 miles an hour. I mean, probably effort-wise as much as anybody out there. So it's going to be hard to keep him away from all the full speed stuff. But, you got to just let the other guys learn. You got 3 tight ends. Delp's learning, and then those other 2 are going to come in and get a lot of reps. So I think it worked out pretty good last year because he had a shoulder injury and Washington had a foot injury. So the younger guys like Delp and also Gilbert got a lot more reps. So there's a lot of things you can do without full contact too. So I think they'll really protect him.
I thought Roddy had a question. He looked pensive.
No, I was just agreeing with the coach there. I thought it was I'm worried about some of the guys that feels like every spring we have somebody gets hurt, and it's
a physical game. I don't think you can completely stop that, right? Like that's why I was going to happen.
Yeah, when Coach points out, there's only so many things. It's like I get it, but so many guys are really busting their ass trying to make a name for themselves. this is your chance to do it, especially with some new coaches out there. These guys go a little hard. You didn't get to play as much last year. Let's just say it's an open competition at the corner spot. There's the corners that are all fighting to take a Keely Ringo spot. They're going to lay some wood. So
the George Pickens one was devastating for that team, and for him, I hated that one.
Here's the thing.
Ball last year too.
Yeah, I think you just got a real fine line between, hey, back to back, what are we going to do to prove we can get another one, or we don't go overboard to try to establish the fact that you're going to work them harder and all that. Hey, you just got to be work smart and practice against each other. And we got a winning formula. I mean, might be a few things you change and add, but it's not broke. You don't need to change a whole lot.
Amen.
Let's get to some questions from our UGA sports subscribers. Sean 2362 says, aside from personnel changes, what will the challenges for Mike Bobo be to replicate Todd Monken's offense? And then he said, how long before artificial intelligence is calling plays on either side of the ball?
What was that?
He said, how long before artificial intelligence is calling plays on either side of the ball?
That's beyond me on that one. But as far as Mike, one of the worst things you can ever do in any role is compare yourself to somebody else. You got to be who you are, and you've been given the reins to this vehicle here. I mean, you got to the parameters. I mean, Kirby's basically said publicly he wants to keep the same terminology and all, but you've got to be ready to be your own guy, and that's what he'll do. And within the framework of, like I just said, it's not broke. You don't need to change a lot, but you got to be yourself. I know when I got the Oklahoma job, there were 4 guys there that had been there and all had wanted to be the coordinator. And the first day, all they did was talk to me about, well, we've never done it like this, and we've never done it like that. And I just said to myself, I mean, I've either got to be myself or I'm just going to cower to these guys like that. I mean, I'm supposed to be the leader. So I went in and talked to Switzer about it. And I said, look, this is the way I want to do it. And you hired me. And he went down there and told him, said, look, if I don't wanted to hire any one of you guys, I'd have hired you. I hired this guy. And we're going to do what he wants to do. And if you don't want to do it, you need to get your ass out of here. And that's the way I think it's got to be with Mike. You can't, and there's going to be enough comparison with everybody once it starts. Well, Monken wouldn't have done this. Hey, but Mike's a very, very astute coach. He's a real student of the game, and he'll do a tremendous job here.
Question from Jacket Squasher. Which upcoming sophomores will make the biggest leap in development from 2022 to 2023? A name I've heard you say before is Marvin Jones Jr.
Yeah, I just worried that Marvin's going to miss spring, with the injury, but he certainly got the potential. He wasn't here for spring last year, but I think he could do that for sure. I look for Bear Alexander to continue to just massive move up the charts. What he did between last spring and the end of the year was kind of like Jordan Davis, and maybe a couple of these receivers. You might see some of these guys just jump out after they've had a chance, like Dylan Bell or some guys like that. So, but overall, there's some really good freshmen that are going to be sophomores, and there's some really good high school seniors that are going to be freshmen here that are just going to jack it up. We've talked about them before.
Well, Big Old Dog wants you to keep talking about him because he says, I know Coach Donnan says that his mouth is watering with the war daddies in this incoming class. Who are maybe 5 or so of the names you think can make an immediate impact with this team?
Well, I think Hall, number one, right off the bat, the corner, AJ
Harris.
Joe, the kid from Connecticut, Aguero, is that the way you pronounce it, as a defensive back?
Aguero.
Freeland, the offensive lineman. I think Rob, the kid from the West Coast, running back, is going to be good. All of those guys. And then the linebackers, Allen, all of those linebackers are just look like Roquan. We got a really good group of linebackers, and Bowles isn't even here yet. So those would be the guys that just kind of get me started there. But as I mentioned, and the 19 guys that are here, we haven't had the volume of 19 guys that look like this. We've had a lot of good players here, but we've had some guys that really needed to develop. These guys are pretty far along, and they got a long way to go for sure, but this is an impressive-looking freshman group we got.
A guy like Andrew Paul, and I know he's not the freshman in that group, he was last year, but with the injury that he had, do you encourage players that miss that first season or anything? Do you tell them to kind of treat this like they're a freshman again? Or like, I'm just curious, like his mentality, he's coming in and he hasn't played in a long time.
Well, here's the thing about Andrew that really impressed me throughout the fall when he was rehabbing his knee and ACL. He was working mentally, going to all the meetings, which, is mandatory, but he was asking a lot of questions, and he's out there with a notebook, taking notes, watching things, and he's mentally with it. And if you're doing that, then it helps you. I remember watching that Fitzpatrick kid, the first year spring practice, he was over here. He couldn't practice, but he came over and he was watching practice and he was taking notes. And that to me, you can remember a lot of things, but if you make a memory with writing it down, really is impressive to me. So I've said this on the show. I think Andrew Paul is somebody that everybody's going to be talking about next year. He can catch the ball. He's tough. He played in a good league out there. It was a lesser league because it was a private league, but this guy can make you miss. He's physical. He can catch the ball. He's kind of a mix between Edwards and Milton. I think he's going to be huge on our team next year.
From UGA Alum 95, what positions, if any, does Coach Donnan think Kirby might pursue transfers after spring? He suggests maybe pass rushing defensive end or maybe another running back. I don't see running back. I think they'll be happy with the 5 they have.
Yeah, I think all of us that have interest in Georgia, from the coaches on down to the fans, are going to be watching what happens after spring, because there's going to be some guys that look at their spots here and say, look, I just don't think I'm going to fit in here. And it's say goodnight, Gracie. I mean, they're going to hit the road. They're looking to play somewhere else. Fortunately for us, we haven't lost anybody that hurt us that badly, although we, like you mentioned, Tyreek Stevenson could have helped us being the star and the nickel guy. But there's going to be, we lost 10 or 11 last year. And we've got to lose some because we're like 92 or 93 guys. You got to be down to 85 when you bring the freshmen in. So it just depends on what you might think one thing going into spring, and then after practice is over, you're going to have a run on guys leaving at one position, and you might have to take some guys from that standpoint. But right now, we can't take anybody until we see who leaves. So, but you're always looking for that difference maker. And, it might be a kicker. Who knows? Hopefully these kickers will be the guys. I just mentioned that. I don't think we're looking for a kicker, but it just depends on who stays and who produces in the spring. But I wouldn't see us looking for a back at this point, but all of a sudden, a couple of these backs decide they're going to go somewhere else, and then you got to get some depth, and so your team can practice.
Yeah, while that's happening in Athens and other places, especially some of this being some coaches that know these players super well. Like, I don't think it's a mistake that Brett Seether went to Georgia Tech. I think Eddie Gordon, if he gets to UAB and says, man, I could use some help at offensive line, well, he knows a lot of good ones. I'm not saying it would be the elite of the elite at Georgia, but he knows those guys. I think it's rare that you have like a Goody that goes to Mississippi State where he's literally the only tight end on the roster at the moment.
Yeah, and I mean, of course, his girlfriend went there to play volleyball. That didn't hurt either. So the lure there was good, but he'll play. He's a good player. And Seether played for Buster. I was glad to saw his release yesterday of some of these salaries from different places. Glad to see Buster's making $750,000. That's pretty good pay for Tech. I thought they still had their money in over there in the cans underneath the stadium. I didn't realize they were paying like that. But Buster's good good coach, and he'll do a good job over there. And
they'll try to pay him in crypto, Coach.
More than likely, Blaylock will be going over there too. You probably think we'll see, but you got to think Dom probably going to look at a place where he knows, he can go in and help. Don't keep me to the wall. And it looks like that's for obvious reasons, but
we won't hold you to that.
We've also lost two support people here, to Western Kentucky that because Tyson Summers knew him from here, and one of the guys works with the linebackers has gone to be a linebacker coach, and another defensive end, Hall, helped Travis Trey Scott. So we lost two good guys behind the scenes there, but that's what happens when you win. You got good guys learning what to do, and they step up and move.
If you want to step up and move over to Academia Brewing Company for their St. Patty's. I see a lot of green on that.
Yeah, the St. Patty Day specials that they're going to have over there on the 17th. You got to try those out. They have the minty chocolate and the green mimosas, and it's nobody does holiday celebrations quite like Academia Brewing Company, be it 4th of July, President's Day, Arbor Day. They're going to do something over there, and it's always something new. So if you go to Academia twice in the 1 month span or 6 month span, it's almost not the same restaurant. Because the food changes on the menu and the beer selection always changes. And I always recommend getting a flight. If you're not familiar with it, a flight is 4 small pours. And they bring them to you in a barrel stave, from one of the barrels they use to serve them. And you can pick 4 different beers, try them out. They even have wine flights. So you can try those out as well for all their different wines. But check out our friends at Academic Brewing Company. There's not a bigger Bulldog fan probably in the whole world than Matt Casey, the guy who founded the whole thing. But he knows how to have a good time. And I've seen him at the national championship games. I've seen him at the Georgia-Florida game. And that man knows how to have a good celebration. And remember, they always have now the weather's getting warmer. They'll be back to having their classic cars on Sundays and the bike nights, motorcycles nights. So check out our friends at Academia Brewing Company when you get the chance. Speaking of when you get the chance, I want you to reach out to our friends at Prime Shrimp. It's primeshrimp.com. Use promo code UGASports. Get 20% off your first order. They sell frozen shrimp. They sell it's pre-seasoned, pre-peeled, deveined. It comes in a bag just like the old minute bags or minute rice that you used to get. It comes to you frozen with either insulated bag and a block or dry ice. You take it out, you put it in your freezer. Then when you're ready to make shrimp and grits, you're ready to make pasta Alfredo with shrimp on it. You're ready to make shrimp tacos. You take it out, you drop the bag into the boiling water, 4 minutes, take it out, it's done. It's perfectly seasoned, fantastically delicious shrimp. Try out our friends at Prime Shrimp. You will absolutely love it. The folks at UGASports buy $200-$300 worth of shrimp at a time because it's such a good deal. So hit them up.
Question from Savannah Dog. Any CJ Washington update? Will he be able to play again?
Tough injury there, for the fans. He had a neck injury last spring, and haven't heard anything to the contrary that he's going to play anytime soon. But just not much information coming out about what shouldn't be. I mean, it's between him and the medical staff and the football. So I don't haven't heard anything different than he's just right now. Just tough deal. It's hard to take a chance on coming back and playing at this point. But you don't know what to. Have you heard, Roddy? Do you know anything else?
I've not heard anything about that. We were just told at the time that it doesn't look good, and they'll keep praying and they'll keep working with them and see what happens.
Right.
So it's not something you can. I go back to who was Jarvis Jones. When you have injuries like that, or just a situation like that, you've got to be beyond careful. And some of that stuff either heals or it doesn't. And if it does heal, it heals so slow to drive you crazy.
I remember the other story from last year, EJ Lightsey. I mean, he recovered and he's fine, but like that was a scary situation when that happened.
Exactly. We had to wait. There was no news coming out about it. You just had to wait and see what happened.
Phil Rogers on Facebook, coach, wants to know about the 3 defensive linemen, Bear Alexander, Big Jolly, and Big Baby Hall. So asking about, I guess, Big Jolly. Is that Jamal Jarrett?
Yes, it is. They call him Big Jolly.
Well, we mentioned Bear Alexander just had a tremendous increase in productivity as the season really used the coaching and going against the better players. I mean, going against the offensive line on the scout team like he did, and then moving up. Jamal Jarrett came in for the first part of practice there for the bowl, and then I think he had a small surgery. I'm not sure what it was on, but he's certainly losing weight and is going to get down there, and he'll be a lot like Bear last year. Maybe not a lot in the spring, but develop in the fall. And then as far as Hall, I mean, if he plays 1 inch about, I don't know how to describe. If he plays anything like he looks on the hoof and what I've watched on the tape, say goodnight, Gracie. I mean, this guy is a war daddy.
Mark it down, folks.
I mean, coach has not missed on these because
he's not missed on these. When he says
Jalen Carter, he said that. Jordan Davis.
I can't take credit for that. I mean, it's pretty. I mean, it's pretty obvious. You can see, but sometimes you got to step out on a limb, like Jalen Carter when he was in high school. We did that deal over there when we were doing the show at Champies, and I said, it's going to be like a shot out of Cape Canaveral when this guy gets here. Hall is maybe not as explosive as Carter, but very powerful.
Well, it'll be a busy week in Athens next week, and that may impact when we do our podcast. So we're figuring those logistics out. But with spring ball starting on Tuesday, and then I think every NFL coach should be in Athens on Wednesday, but every NFL team definitely will be and have some.
Yeah, they'll have a lot of. There'll be a lot of guys over there that management and coaches and scouts that be really huge day for that. And Scott Sinclair will kind of run it, and his staff, they'll do it, and then the coaches take over a little bit. I never will forget a couple years ago when Belichick and one of his assistants took over the linebacker drills, and it was kind of interesting. He was out there doing linebacker drills on the same field that our coaches do, but Belichick was out there knocking it out.
We got 10 more questions. I don't think we'll have time to get to all of them, but let me hit.
How many?
10.
Good Lord. Let's go rapid fire here.
We'll get some. Dallas Dog says, thoughts on Nick Saban whining about the proposed schedule?
Hey, he's going to whine. That's just Nick just throwing it out there. But it's going to be hard to make everybody happy with that. I mean, you got to play the good teams if you're going to be the best team. And it's just the way the cookie crumbles here. If they play LSU and Auburn and Tennessee, I mean, Tennessee all of a sudden starting to get better. So that's okay. I'm not going to worry about Nick too much.
I don't have an issue with him complaining about the teams that he's been playing for decades. Same teams. It's not like you're getting anybody new. Don't whine. Dog and Friends had something along those lines. He said, Coach, where does Drew Bobo fit in on the offensive line? And why was Alabama lying about Bryce Young's height?
That's the way they do. That's the way they do things. I don't know. I mean, most people. You could say Georgia was lying about Jones as we had him too short. I mean, he was that's the first guy I've ever heard that's taller in the combine. But
almost
as far as Drew Bobo, I mean, he worked at guard and center during fall camp. Then he had shoulder repair. He probably won't get to do a whole lot this spring, maybe some, but he can do a lot with non-contact. But he's got good feet. Played high school basketball. I think he'll help us in the O-line.
Riley says, where does Chris Smith go in the draft? He's not that big, but he makes a lot of plays.
I think his football acumen is going to help him. He'll go, I would say, middle round type guy. The thing that helps him, he can cover. He played star some. He started out as a corner. He's very physical. People that play a lot of Tampa, too deep stuff, trap coverages. He'll be good. I think it'll be middle round for him.
He looked huge. I know he didn't show it in the weight, but when we interviewed him, he looked a lot bigger than he had been. The guy's been working out. 21 Dog says, where would Brock Bowers be drafted if he could have declared for this draft?
First round. I mean, that's a no-brainer.
I agree.
He was picked the Mackey Award, the best tight end in the country. He would test when he goes those tests, it'll be the only thing he'll be challenged is he'll be mad. Whatever he does, he'll try to beat it on the second time. So he'll be good. Two more questions, then the old coach got to leave.
Kyle B says, how does the Classic City Collective stack up against the other NIL groups out there?
I got no idea.
I was about to say, I don't know what the numbers are, but I would just tell everybody.
Must be doing pretty good. We getting the players.
Yeah. Dane, you got any thoughts on that?
They're structured so differently in so many different places. There's a lot of variables, so we're better off to kick that to the summer and discuss kind of in length what that looks like.
All right, last one from Carson. Carson's been on the board forever. He says, when will Ernest Green be healthy? When can we expect him back?
I think based on everything I've heard, he's going to be back for the spring. Had a good start in the fall camp. Of course, our players talk him up. I think Green and Blasky are two good guys that we got to go with Mims to help us at tackle. So another good job of recruiting here. Ernest Green will be one of the really good players for Georgia's O-line.
And I'm glad you mentioned Blasky as well, because Broderick Jones and Warren McClendon were asked about who takes over that other side. They both mentioned Green, but I think Blasky's going to be right in it. And it's a tough cookie as well. All right, folks, that's all the time we have for this week's show. We really appreciate all of you tuning in. We'll, as Dane said, our show next week will be fluid with practice starting in NFL Pro Day. So we might do it in the Wednesday night. We'll have to see. But anyway, shout out to Athens Ford, Your Pie, Academic Brewing Company, Dead Soxy, Prime Shrimp, and My Perfect Franchise. We appreciate all of the sponsors, and we appreciate all of you watching, and we would really appreciate it if you would share this with your friends and check us out on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok. So we will see you folks next week. Take care.